On behalf of PAWA, we want to wish you a happy new year and thank you for taking the time to join us in PAWA's first event of 2024. And we're privileged to have such a wonderful group of poets to join us in Dear Human. And with that, I'd like to ask Abe, also a PAWA board member, but also the librarian of the Filipino American Center at the San Francisco Public Library, who we have collaborated with through the years. Hey, Ignacio.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Edwin. And the San Francisco Public Library definitely is very honored to participate in Dear Human today and to continue all these different urgent conversations on environmental justice. So thank you again for joining us all this afternoon. We look forward to hearing all our voices, poetic voices today.
And now we'd like to hand over the event to Beverly Parayno, board member of PAWA and author of Wildflowers. Beverly Parayno.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited about this event. Thank you, Edwin Lozada, Executive Director of PAWA, and Abe, our friend in the library who runs the Filipino American Center at San Francisco Public Library. This event is co-sponsored by PAWA and the Filipino American Center. And again, we're so happy that you're here with us today. I just wanted to say a few things about PAWA before we start. So PAWA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is to support and promote Filipinx writers and artists in the US and also in the Philippines and throughout the diaspora. And this year, 2024, in October, we will be having our 7th Filipino American International Book Festival. So please look out for that. It's going to be an exciting event and always a great time to bring everyone together in support of Filipinx writers and Filipinx books. I have been on the PAWA board for, I think, for 4 years now, and I'm very excited. I'm always excited to bring together the community. And this is particularly exciting because we have so many amazing poets. This is such a great lineup. And we're hoping to have a musical performance as well if we're able to get the audio working correctly. So what I wanted to say was just that I've been seeing on social media, Eileen has been doing an amazing job. Eileen Cassinetto has been doing an amazing job of really promoting Dear Human. And she is the publisher as well as the co-editor along with Luisa Igloria of Dear Human at the Edge of Time, Poets on Climate Change in the United States. And there are 70 plus contributors to the anthology and many Filipinx poets. So that's when I was in discussion with Eileen about how do we get together and feature the Filipinx poets in the anthology. So I just wanted to briefly read a little bit from the press release for those who are not familiar with the publication. It came out in September 2023, again from Paloma Press. And here's a little bit about it. In the US, the congressionally mandated Fifth National Climate Assessment, also known as NCA5, report is currently in development, and groups of scientists from all over the country and the Caribbean are overseeing the synthesis of published research for regional and topic-specific chapters. For the first time, the White House of Science and Technology Policy, through the U.S. Global Change Research Program, has included the arts to encourage wider participation in the National Climate Assessment and help visualize the impacts of climate change. Dear Human at the Edge of Time, Poets on Climate Change in the United States is offered as a companion to NCA 5 and an additional opportunity to participate in the urgent conversations on environmental justice. So again, this was edited by Academy of American Poet Laureate Fellows Luisa A. Igloria, Eileen Cassetto, both of them here with us today, and also NCA 5 chapter lead, Dr. Jeremy S. Hoffman. And I did also want to note that in November of last year, November 2023, Dear Human won the Poetry Anthology category of the 20th Annual Best Book Awards. So congratulations. So we're going to have 9 poets read today for 5 minutes each, and in between we hope to have a musical performance. And please stay with us because we're going to have a brief Q&A at the end of the performances. So the first reader today is Luisa A. Igloria. Originally from Baguio, Philippines, Luisa A. Igloria is co-editor of Dear Human at the Edge of Time and the author of numerous books of poetry, including Maps of Migrants and Ghosts through Southern Illinois University Press, co-winner of the 2019 Crab Orchard Poetry Prize, and the chapbook What is Left of Wings, I Ask, winner of the Center for the Book Arts Letterpress Poetry Chapbook Prize, selected by Natasha Treworthy. In 2015, she was the inaugural winner of the Resurgence Prize in the UK, the world's first major award for eco-poetry. A Louis I. Jaffe Professor and University Professor of English and Creative Writing, she teaches in the MFA Creative Writing program at Old Dominion University, which she directed from 2009 to 2015. Dr. Igloria also leads workshops at the Muse Writers Center in Norfolk and was appointed Poet Laureate of the Commonwealth of Virginia from 2020 to 2022. In 2021, she received an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship. Welcome, Luisa Igloria.
Thank you so much, Beverly. Thank you, Edwin and Abe, for hosting this program. I'm so pleased to join you all these wonderful poets who are part of this wonderful experience, which is the anthology Dear Human at the Edge of Time. This is a book which took about 1.5 years in the making, putting together, and Paloma Press has been exceptional in doing such a beautiful job of getting all of this together and promoting it, just as Beverly has said. So it was published in early September, and we had its first launch program and reading at the end of August. I also want to briefly say that please look out for future announcements. There's going to be a Virginia book launch right here in Norfolk on February 10, which is, I understand it's the Lunar New Year also, so that seems auspicious. I'll have more details in the next few, so please look out for that. So I am so pleased to have shared this vision with my co-editors, Aileen Cassinetto and Jeremy S. Hoffman, without whom, none of this would have been possible in the way that we have it today. So what I wanted to do is read the poem that is in the anthology, my poem in the anthology, and then read a newer poem. As some of you know, I write at least a poem a day. So I'm going to read the poem I wrote yesterday from my daily writing practice, which I've never read aloud before. So this is going to be fun. This is Ode to the Never Ending. And if you have your anthologies in hand, it's on page 109. Ode to the Never Ending. The universe says you'll get smacked with a lesson as many times as it takes for you to learn it. If that's so, what lesson could possibly be in this tiny, annoying hair that keeps growing back in the same spot on the right side of your chin? You stand on tiptoe to get a better angle at the mirror. Tweezers in hand, you pull it out, marveling at how a small irritation commands total absorption. A week later, it's back, nagging feeling, indeterminate itch. In Virginia Beach, 4 dead humpback whales have washed up on the shore since the beginning of the year. You could say they are also a kind of lesson that hasn't been learned. Necropsies show injuries consistent with vessel strikes in waters thick with ship traffic. If the world is ending, each cetacean body that perishes on sand is a fallen leaf, a wound bled open in the middle of a horizon of fall starts. We keep saying there's time. The window's still open until it's not. So I will read my second and last poem for this reading. It is also fueled by marine imagery. Some of our other interactions with fish are the more domestic variety. So it's called Eating Fish, I Think of You. How should I measure a distance that remains incalculable, that gestures like a filament in turquoise water or the edge of a feather flashing beyond the hills? A long time ago when you arrived, I looked beyond your eyes and understood we come from a luminosity in darkness, a wound that crackles the sky continually open with stars. How could I match their offerings? Overnight, it dips below freezing and the floorboards palm the soles of my feet. Some people refuse to turn a steamed fish over in its platter. Instead, they lift the spine and its forest of bones entire, this being one way to arrive unharmed at the softer side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luisa. So beautifully read and really moving imagery. And I'm so impressed that you write a poem a day. That's really amazing. Thank you. Our next performer is Mary Grace Bertulfo. Mary Grace Bertulfo has written for television and children's education at CBS, Pearson Education Asia, and Schlesinger, and for the magazines Sierra and Chicago Wilderness. Her fiction, essays, and poetry have appeared in Growing Up Filipino 2, Our Own Voice, City of Big Shoulders, and fiction from Southern New Hampshire University, where she was the Orion Scholar and was awarded the Lynn Safford Memorial Prize. Mary Grace founded Banyan, Asian American Writers Collective in Chicago, where she paddles rivers and meanders prairies. Welcome, Mary Grace.
Thank you, Beverly. Thank you, Edwin of PAWA. Thank you, Abe from the Filipino Center of the San Francisco Library. I'm just so honored to be here amongst all these fantastic poets and among Filipino literary organizations. And thank you to the audience for showing up. Chicago, it's cold and snowy for the second time this season. I'm going to read 1.5 poems just to make sure all of my fellow panelists have time. The first one is from Dear Human, an anthology I'm very proud to be a part of. And my poem Feast is on page 97. The themes that move my heart are family, intergenerational families of humans who are people, and also, as Native Americans here in Turtle Island have said, animals who are people, and sort of the things we have in common. So feast. Thirst hides in the small things, piercing, who are not things, but wings and striped abdomens turned ruby red at dusk. The drops of my blood are bond as they buzz and needle. Culex mosquitoes and our Bertulfo family reunion. Navigate the choking summer heat and feed our respective broods. Guitars serenade our backyard dinner party, moments stolen from clicking laptops, sanitized desks, and corona isolation. Lola Meli and Lolo June flew halfway across America to meet baby Elias, pleasant plumpness and folds, and pass him on our exuberant bouncing knees around patio tables piled with pancit noodles and oil-stained pizza boxes. We endure, trying not to wilt, beaded sweat unable to evaporate. Cousins squeal and shoot clear arcs of water. I pull strips of damp blue cloth, makeshift kerchiefs from the fridge, tie frosty knots in the dimples of our necks. We hold on, 15 minutes more, an hour, 4. Who knows when we will be together again? Tempests from whirring fan blades confuse flying bloodsuckers. Protective, we swat the tender crooks of baby Elias's knees, fending off fevers, the threat of vomit, dreading spots and splotches from West Nile virus. Hungry mosquito mamas siphon our lifeblood. Which of them carries the disease? Next morning, I drain, rain from flower pots, puddles from dented plastic tables, prevent hundreds of wigglers from hatching. The fury of climate chaos bruises our calves. Our reunion continues, unabated, as red welts rise.
Thank you, Mary Grace. That was a very powerful reading. Thanks for mentioning your page number 2. I was able to read along. Beautiful. So next we have Cynthia Buiza. Cynthia is the former executive director of the California Immigrant Policy Center. She earned a master's degree in international affairs from the Fletcher School at Tufts University with a concentration on human security studies. She also holds certificates from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government and the Stanford Graduate School of Business. Cynthia currently serves as a California State Commissioner with the Little Hoover Commission and the CA 100. Her poems have appeared in various anthologies and publications in the Philippines and the US. Her debut poetry collection, The Future is a Country I Do Not Live In, was released by Paloma Press in August 2022. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you, Beverly, and good afternoon again, everybody. Thank you to PAWA, especially to Edwin and Beverly for this opportunity, but also especially to Luisa and Eileen for making this book happen. It is so important. It is so timely. It is so urgent. So I'm very grateful to be part of it. I'm very inspired by the fellow poets in the room and the writers in the room who make sure that the written word joins in the fight for our climate. A lot of my poems has to do with some kind of a nostalgia, but also anxiety about what's going on with our planet, but especially with the Philippines and its environment, because I go home twice a year. I go back to the homeland twice a year, and I've seen it change. And so these are some of the homages to I'm reading 2.5 short poems, including the one from the anthology. And the first one is called Barbie and the Apocalypse. It was the month that sun took us all indoors, despite all the rage about pink. The faithful ones stayed hidden, peeking through windows, picking nervously at the lace. It was hot enough to burn, so we did. Heat so hot, air began to hum like a reset. Wildfire tonguing our forests and cities. From Alabama to Zagreb, they said. Finally, a mapless, borderless conquest. No clear enemy lines, just billions of us fanning ourselves inside Earth's molten circumference, sanderlings skipping barefoot on the beach, probing the water's rise, watched by a cooling God. Witnessing. I have seen St. Lucia black finches tumble into the sand like feathery balls of elation, right after the poet who was their neighbor wrote a poem about love after love. What do birds know about longing? I've heard migrating mourning doves sing songs of homeland after a vicious storm, grief under cover. I drank rain falling from a height so high, it tasted like poisoned arrows headed for my heart. Still, lavender clouds assumed happy human shapes and spun me a good day. This morning, a three-eyed crocus pushed through the snow and beamed in my direction as I went about finding a cure for joy. And the last one is a very short prayer that's in the book. It's called Climate Eden. It's on page 142 if you want to follow. If snow, then may the wolf rule and rule benevolently. If sea, then may the whale reign, may the sirens sing. If land, then may the mountains go on living, telling their stories. If us, then may death teach and teach absolutely. The stranger asked, "What has kept you from singing?" I had no answer, save for this melody within me, rising and rising. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I just want to take a quick minute to thank everyone for coming, and especially we have some PAWA board members and advisory board members in the audience. Hello to Maya Escudero, Christina Newhard, and Dina Clarice. So our next reader is Everett Cruz. Everett Cruz is a multicultural Filipino American who grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. He lives and teaches in Denton, Texas. His writing has been or will be published in The Bitchin' Kitsch, Resurrection Magazine, Dippity, Marias at Sambagitas, Stanza Canon, and 5 South. You can find him on Twitter at Everett Cruz is okay. Everett?
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay? I moved my mic. We good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so
Sounds
much.
great.
All right. I'm also a middle school teacher and a grad student at UNT. I don't know, I just feel like I got to throw that in there. All right, so I'm reading my poem from the anthology. It's on page 67. It's called Which Ice Melts Faster, and I will try to do it at a reasonable pace. Which ice melts faster? The ones in our whiskey or the ones at the polls? At the polls, we vote to fix it, and when nobody does, they say to try again. So we scream because nobody tries, and they tell us to vote again. We don't think they want to try. Again, they want us to think they'll try. They want us to chill, but the ice is melting and flooding as the temperature rises. We raise a glass to the world, but in our whiskey, the ice is melting, disappearing like hope leaving Pandora's box, like hope leaving every ballot box. Nothing gets fixed. We're neutered as we wait. We feel the weight of the world like Atlas, staring at maps, wondering what will be underwater. We're wet from sweat. We sweat, we scream. They tell us to vote again because they want us to be cool. But the temperature rises and our fires are burning. Which ice melts faster? Again, which ice melts faster? I also, thank you. I also wanted to read another one or two more. This one is going to be published with 8:15. The Strode Transcendentalist. Let us run. to where the pigeons and grackle flutter about to find French fries in the fields of the Five Guys parking lot. Let us linger, where the rainbows shimmer off the trickling Oil Creek leak of Kia. The fish do not bite there. They are fried in the land of golden arches. Let us go to where heaven, a place on earth, escapes from the outdoor speakers of the ice cream shop's patio. Let us feel the heat of breeze from the backs of sheep as they flock in Jeeps and Ford F-150s. They fill the verdant valley of the non-unionized Starbucks drive-through lane. Let us look to where a plastic angel floats in the infinite teal of dawn. It is raptured. Let us hide inside and drift with the creature and hope it glides beyond the horizon and into the sun. And the last one I want to read is called Don't Write Poetry. For the writers in the room who have been in workshops, I decided to write about all the things we were told not to write about in workshop, as I cried about it in my garden one day. So it's called Don't Write Poetry. Don't write poetry about bees, that they keep you company in the garden as you tend to your flowers. And don't write about flowers, though you love watching them in the morning as they dance in the wind. And never mention wind, though it comforts you through the pain like the soft whispers of a mother. And mother, avoid that word, though you wish she'd sing to you like the birds of an old oak blanketed by blue skies beneath a dusting of clouds warmed by the sun. Sun, clouds, skies, trees, birds. Don't even think about these words, though you long for them every time the only nightlight is the moon. And the moon, erase it from your memory. It belongs to the real poets. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Everett. Our next reader is the wonderful Karen Llagas, who I have the pleasure of serving on the PAWA board with. Karen Llagas' new chapbook, All of Us Are Cleaved, was released by Nomadic Press in 2023. Her first collection of poetry, Archipelago Dust, was published by Meritage Press in 2010. A recipient of a Parayno Founders Prize, Fillmore Tabios Senior Memorial Poetry Prize, and a Hedgebrook residency, her poems have also appeared in various journals and anthologies. She lectures at UC Berkeley and divides her time between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Welcome, Karen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, PAWA, fellow PAWA board members, Luisa and Eileen for doing such a tremendous work, not just for putting this poetry anthology together, but actually pushing it out in different communities. I'm so looking forward to its continuation out in the world. I felt like just a jolt of caffeine after Everett's reading. So I'm going to read a newish poem that is also a little bit about climate. And sometimes I feel, and these two poems reflected, that all I could do at this time is maybe grieve, but also praise, even as we're at this edge. Praise the fire, with thanks to Joy Harjo. Praise the fire, the canyon it cleared, the dire, the dry, the coast below, the godwits and the snowy egrets, the silver glitter that dusted the rose bushes the few seconds before our eyes discerned it as ash. I paused to praise all the ways I could not have been here today. There's the mysterious pill one New Year's Eve years ago, getting into a stranger's car after being lost on a trail in Mount Tam, and one more time in rural France. There was a spinning truck on the drive back from Black Rock. The lies I told the police to keep an ex-lover's brother from being deported. Oh, the effigy, how big the flames, how seductive. Praise choosing the same regrets over, burning the same bridges, the town towards you, the cinders. The poem from the anthology that I'm going to read is on page 30. Some conjunctions in our late Anthropocene. Lord, if my dreams have holes, if you still mean for them to be holy, if you will, forgive me my distractions, Lord, if I follow all the rules as best as I can. If I get caught again by traps set by beauty. If beauty be the feast of twigs my dog finds on our morning walk, the photo shoots I imagine my neighbors walk in and out of all day, if they are all glittered and bronzed in the purple light of a Los Angeles dusk, if in the city's frame proximate humans call up in me a craving to press my cheek on the ground, if I want to ask a rained-on earth a secret, Lord, if you forgive my desire to be singular and whole without holes, if it's summer, if not even a single leaf sways out of sync, if water is memory, if we are scorching the sweet earth, Lord, if we call that beauty, if there's more to do than practice looking at the sun. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. That was such a beautiful piece. It's so quiet, yet so powerful. So now we have a special guest musician. We hope it's going to work. We started a little late because we're not sure if a live audio performance will work on a Zoom webinar. It does work for Zoom meetings, but we're not sure how this is going to go. But I will go ahead and introduce Zosimo Kibilan Jr. is a Filipino-American writer and musician based in Los Angeles. His book of short fiction, Pagluwas Going to the City, University of the Philippines Press, won the National Book Award and the Madrigal Gonzalez Best First Book Award. Together with fellow multi-hyphenate Cavan, he wrote the libretto and music of Bayani, a two-act rock opera on the last days of Andres Bonifacio, the leader of the 1896 Philippine Revolution against Spain. Kibilan also wrote songs for the short film Zenaida, which was screened at the 2023 LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. So let's go ahead and try with the audio. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear the guitar now? So, how about my voice? Can you hear my voice?
We can hear your voice.
Okay, I'll try. I'll just I changed microphones. So hopefully this works now. All right. I'm gonna play a song that I've called "Huwag mong patayin ang ilaw." Don't put out the light. Sa pag-alon ng dibdib mo, nalaman ko ng panatag ang lahat. Payapa ang paghinga, pinaghele kita ngayong gabi ng pagdududa. Sariwa pa sa alaala ko ang sinabi mo nang mawalan ka ng tiwala sa akin. Huwag mong patayin ang ilaw, hindi sapat ang katabi kita sa pagtulog. Dahil alam kong sa dilim, patuloy na mag-iisa. Hinagod ko ang maalong buhok, umulat ka maya't maya kunwari yan pangako. Malamig ngayong gabi, yayakapin kang mahigpit, Magnanakaw ng pahinga sa masikip na kama, hindi mawala sa alaala ko ang sinabi mo nang mawalan ka ng tiwala sa akin. Huwag mong patayin ang ilaw, hindi sapat ang katabi kita sa pagtulog. Dahil alam kong sa dilim, patuloy na mag-iisa. Minsan nalilimutang bigkasing mahal kita. Iyang na tayong dalawa, bulag na sa hiwaga ng pagpapala ng panahong kasama ka. Humaharap araw-araw sa paghamon ng pagtataya. Dahil alam kong sa dilim, patuloy na mag-iisa. Pinatay ko ang ilaw kagabi. Himbing na himbing ang mga damdamin. Nagising tayong halos magkasabay. Sariwang-sariwa, nasisilaw sa araw. Limutin mo na ang sinabi mo nang mawalan ka ng tiwala sa akin. Huwag mong patayin ang ilaw, hindi sapat ang katabi kita sa pagtulog. Dahil alam kong sa dilim, patuloy na mag-iisa. Ah, ah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zosimo. That was wonderful. We'll have to have you on again one day when we can get the sound right. So
Yeah.
our apologies.
No worries,
Paula
no worries.
apologizes, but your beautiful voice came through
Oh, thanks.
really wonderfully. And I hope everyone here will check out Zosimo's music. And we're so happy to have you joining us for this event today. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So our next reader is Eileen Cassinetto. I also have the pleasure of working with Eileen on the as an advisory board member to PAWA. Eileen Cassinetto is the co-editor of the award-winning anthology Dear Human at the Edge of Time, companion to the congressionally mandated NCA5. She was named an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellow in 2021 and YBCA 100 honoree in 2023 for her contributions in building regenerative and equitable communities through poetry. Her work has appeared in Poetry Magazine, Anthropocene, West Trestle Review, and Poets.org, among others. The founder of Paloma Press, she currently serves as Arts Commissioner and Commissioner on the Status of Women for San Mateo County. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you, Beverly. When an author releases a new book, they usually reach out to friends and literary groups to help host a reading. With PAWA, we didn't even have to ask. Beverly reached out and offered to organize one. And so I am really deeply grateful to Beverly, Edwin, and Abe for bringing us all together. This anthology is a gift that has kept on giving. It has been a blessing to work with Luisa and Jeremy and to have the support of the Filipino poets with us today, and including Zosimo, who has been so relentless in promoting the Tagalog language through music here in the US. Thank you all so much. My poem was prompted by an article in the journal Nature about krill, which we know as alamang in the Philippines. It examines how the world has changed, how most of the changes are irreversible, and what can still be saved. It's also confronting the impacts of colonization, which we still feel to this day in the Philippines. And so I hope it comes through. My poem is titled Here Be Dragons, Cetaceans, Pink Crustaceans, Dear Humans, and a Book of Remembrance. The cavalry's here, loud as thunder, wild and wiser, like a nobility of beasts. Catch the light where X marks the spot, and if anyone asks, this poem is a map that lapses daily, sees clearly two sea dragons spinning snout to snout, and pods of cetaceans fueled by clouds of pink crustaceans. The shape of the Arctic is less solid now, fading into swaths of milky blue. And above us, dying stars consuming their weight in gas and dust. We're a throbbing mass of grief and limbs, like whale food or swollen coastlines. Do me a kindness and repeat this worship of humans, their book of remembrance, a cadence of heartbeats, more than 1,000 a minute, short-winged and foraging for flowers which bloomed much earlier. If I could, I would gather this shimmer, this wonder of stars, stop the world from burning, the seas from rising, be the cavalry or a reliance of stewards. Remember what it means to love you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Eileen. Next, we have David Maduli. David S. Maduli's work, often inflected by his years as a DJ and public school teacher, has received the Joy Harjo Poetry Prize, national first runner-up for the Inlandia Institute's Hilary Granvendijk Prize, and residencies and fellowships with Las Dos Brujas, VONA, Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing, and Napa Valley Writers Workshop. In addition to his work in public schools, he is an instructor in the MFA in Writing program at Lindenwood University. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here for this necessary anthology. Thank you, Luisa and Eileen, for all your efforts. Beverly, Edwin, and PAWA, it's always a pleasure. And Abe and SF Public Library, thank you. I was born in San Francisco, so it means so much for me to be here and to be in the company of these writers and kasamas, and part of this space to have the expressions and concerns of this anthology be broadcasted. The ecological justice organization called Movement Generation says, whatever you do to the land, you do to the people. Whatever you do to the people, you also do to the land. So I'm going to read 3 short poems that I believe get at this truth. The first, I'm going to take this opportunity to open with a poem by the great Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish, in acknowledgement of the ongoing horror being done to the land and the people there. This poem is called The Earth is Closing In on Us by Mahmoud Darwish. The earth is closing in on us, pushing us through the last passage, and we tear off our limbs to pass through. The earth is squeezing us. I wish we were its wheat so we could die and live again. I wish the earth was our mother so she'd be kind to us. I wish we were pictures on the rocks for our dreams to carry as mirrors. We saw the faces of those to be killed by the last of us in the last defense of the soul. We cried over their children's feast. We saw the faces of those who will throw our children out of the windows of this last space. Our star will hang up mirrors. Where should we go after the last frontiers? Where should the birds fly after the last sky? Where should the plants sleep after the last breath of air? We will write our names with scarlet steam. We will cut off the hand of the song to be finished by our flesh. We will die here in the last passage. Here and here our blood will plant its olive tree. Mahmoud Darwish. Second, I will read the piece from the anthology. This is on page 56. The title is Heterosigma Akashiwo, which is the scientific name for red tide. And I wrote this 2 summers ago after there was a red tide in the bay that affected Lake Merritt in Oakland. There was thousands of fish that died. Stolen sun ghost rides into the bay and detonates. Wildfires jackpot, lava's testimony, volcanic rust, estuary of napalm, hell's marina. Lake Merritt's shores metallic. Upon closer look, mounds of dead fish like fallen leaves from a silver tree. OPD chief says shot spotter activated. Officers dispatched to the scene. Multiple vehicles collision. Shell casings. Wastewater effluent. Warmer temperatures a factor. Bicyclist struck as one car fled. Striped bass. Sturgeon. Smelt. Driver. Passenger. Biker. Harmful algal bloom. Multiple gunshot wounds. Pronounced dead. Cascade of choke. 6 homicides in 4 days. Low dissolved oxygen. Underlying causes. Red tide. Red tide. Red tide. And finally, recently I had the honor of visiting Lishan, which is land that has been rematriated to the Ohlone people. It's off of 105th Ave in Deep East Oakland. And there, the first ceremonial arbor was raised in this land in over 250 years. So this poem is called Arbor. In which straight lines make a circle without bending, in which concentric redwood opens to circles which are drawn of sand and rock and ash, in which skies free from looming freeway, in which bees scribble through clouds of pollen, through which smartphone lenses are not witness, in which we remember, around which we walk the land, beside which the creek flushes through concrete, from which headwaters cascade below coyotes' gaze, beyond which is estuary, above which the sun speaks. Here, an arbor raised after centuries of none, in which our children know which leaves and stems and flowers heal, in which a quarter acre might heal a whole city, a circle which inside is closed and open, above closed and open, around all sides closed and open, in which we come together. Some things we close, some things we open. To breathe is to know this to be true. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Powerful work as always. As I just sit here and listen to each individual poet, I'm really and thinking about the collective of all of your voices. It really just brings home the importance of writing about these subjects and the power of art to convey the urgency around these subjects. So thank you all. We have the great Eileen Tabios next. Aileen R. Tabios has released over 70 collections of poetry, fiction, essays, and experimental biographies from publishers in 10 countries and cyberspace. In 2023, she released the poetry collection, Because I Love You, I Become War, and an autobiography, The Inventor. Other recent books include a first novel, Dove Lion, A Fairy Tale for Our Times, and 2 French books, Cruz and La Vie Érotique de l'Art. She created the Hainaku, a 21st century diasporic poetic form, the MDR poetry generator that can create poems totaling theoretical infinity, and the fluid poetry form that's rooted in a good deed. Translated into 12 languages, she also has edited, co-edited, or conceptualized 15 anthologies of poetry, fiction, and essays. Her writing and editing works have received recognition through awards, grants, and residencies. Welcome, Aileen. You're muted right now, Aileen.
Thank you for having me. I should be muted after. You didn't have to read all that, Beverly, but thank you. And I thank the editors of this anthology, PAWA and San Francisco Public Library, Phil Lab Center. What's interesting about Dear Human, sadly interesting, is that I think it will be relevant for too long a time, because I was hearing just last week that 2023 was judged to be the hottest year on for the planet in the last 175 years, but we humans only have had that tracking technology for the same 175 years. So scientists actually feel that 2023 was the hottest year for the planet in the last 125,000 years. And so we're gonna keep going on from there. I'm gonna read 2 poems, the first of which is based on a true story where because of climate change, we've been experiencing drought and a bunch of mega wildfires, not just in the West, but apparently across the country, as well as overseas from Greece and most recently in Hawaii. And the home that I lived in for 2 decades was taken down by the Glass Fire, a mega wildfire that actually started in my neighborhood before spreading across 2 counties to burn nearly 70,000 acres. So this poem, which I wrote just for Dear Human Anthology, is on page 52, and it's about the first day when I returned to my home after the evacuation orders were lifted. It's titled Black Salted Earth. You return to the opposite of home. Fresh grass never grew back. The universe must have tilted as you walk on night, even as the clock confirms noon. The scientist you hired observed the land contained levels of brominated dioxins higher than at the burning site for electronic waste in Ghana. You return for family left behind, a buck, a doe, and a fawn. You grew up with the parents and considered their baby your niece. You spot only one, the father who looks different from the sibling in your memory. His tail tucks tightly against his rump. His hair stands on end, and his ears have folded to drop. His eyes no longer mirror sons. You bow from your waist to apologize. You represent the human race. Bowing, your gaze nears a terrain of crushed char. You refuse to breathe, but hiccup when you realize animals have no choice. When you raise your face to look at the ruminant you once hailed cheerfully as brother, you discover his departure. You look around, but your eyes only snag more ebony patches of burnt soil. The view matches a bleak silence bereft of even the chirps of once garrulous cicadas. When you open your mouth to call out, you are cowed by the introduction of a new flavor. Anguish tastes salty. A teardrop plummets between your lips to hijack your tongue as the landscape reminds you that too much salt damages the heart. And for my second poem, I wrote it after I heard about the drought causing birds to drop from the sky. I wrote the poem after I read the Guardian's coverage that included this headline: mass die-off of birds in southwestern US caused by starvation. It's titled Bass Notes in the Anthropocene. Sky weeps songbirds, emaciated after eating their own muscles. Oh, sly silence with your bass. Corpses hitting ground. 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 Thank you for including me in this wonderful project.
Wow, thank you, Eileen. That was very powerful. So we have one final poet to read, and then we're going to have a very brief Q&A. If anybody has questions for the poets, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them. Our last reader is Angela Narciso Torres. Angela is the author of What Happens Is Neither, of Four-Way Books, Blood Orange, winner of the 2013 Willow Books Literature Award for Poetry, and the chapbook To the Bone by Sundress Publications. Recent work appears or is forthcoming in Poetry, Missouri Review, Quarterly West, Cortland Review, and Poetry Northwest. A graduate of Warren Wilson MFA program for writers and the Harvard Graduate School of Education, Angela has received fellowships from the Breadloaf Writers Conference, Illinois Arts Council, and Ragdale Foundation. She received first prize in the Yates Poetry Prize. New City Magazine named her one of Chicago's Lit 50, Who Really Books in Chicago. Born in Brooklyn and raised in Manila, she currently resides in San Diego. She serves as a senior and reviews editor for Parayno Poetry. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you, Beverly, for hosting this wonderful event. And I'd also like to graciously thank everyone involved in this project and in this reading. Thank you, Edwin, Abe, Luisa, Eileen, Jeremy, and all my co-readers today, as well as all the co-contributors to this necessary anthology. Thanks to our virtual audience who joined us on this lovely Saturday morning to hear some poetry. So in thinking about this reading today, I was brought to mind, the words of Emily Dickinson came to mind. She said, "Tell the truth, but tell it slant." A poet who drew deeply from nature to express the life of the soul, she knew that speaking truths that come closest to the core of our humanity required a different voice, perhaps a subtler voice. And so perhaps it is when we speak about the urgency of protecting and preserving Mother Nature. As we have heard here today, poetry allows us to say the unsayable. Other forms of writing, scientific papers, data analysis, news articles attempt to comprehend something known, but poetry helps us to reach the unknown, or perhaps that which we didn't know we have always known. And so to close off this reading, I thought I'd read two poems that attempt to say through the lens of nature what only poetry can say. I hope that our voices come together to move, inspire, and ignite our desire to protect and to care for our earth as tenderly and as fiercely as our mothers would have, because all art and all life depends on it. My first poem is called Warm Spell, February. For the first time in weeks, the wind doesn't cut like an insult. My dog feels it too. I slacken her leash so she can dig her nose in the wet underbrush, letting her sniff as long as she likes. A woman walking on a San Francisco beach once told me, "We need to give them time," meaning the dog, snout deep in tangled seaweed. To them, it's like reading a good book. Somewhere I read that Murakami trained for marathons the way he writes, pushing his legs to the next mile, like he pushed his pen to the end of one sentence, then the next. Today, I don't rush. I tread slowly, sipping the air the way the Pacific swallowed our brown bodies just outside Manila, our mothers waving us back to steamed rice, fish, mango on a stick. Why do I remember? Would I think of this now if the air weren't soft as last night's showers, warm as a mother's breast? Would I dare to say, the twigs are chandeliered with rain like pearls from a girl's ear? I breathe. For the first time in weeks, I'm returned to my skin. And for my last poem, I will read the poem in Dear Human. Again, thank you, Luisa, Eileen, and Jeremy, for bringing our voices together in this wonderful collection that I hope will inspire many to tell their truths. Harvesting the Heart. In Florida, I will eat a palm seed and see if that'll grow a new heart for me. D.H. Lawrence. Indeed, swallowing a seed seems the better option. For stealing the palm's heart from its solitary stem is backbreaking work and spells certain death for the tree. The part you can eat, also known as swamp cabbage, lobster of vegetables, burglar's thigh, lies deep in the woody bark, just where the fronds start. You'll need a machete to work down the trunk, stripping layer after jagged layer, each the weight of a small child. Some give up by the third or fourth. But near the core, the flesh is tender, drenched with sap. You'll be surprised, despite how much bark you've skinned. Knuckles raw, fingers splintered, the sheer size of that heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Very beautiful reading. So I just wanted to take a minute to thank all the performers again. Luisa A. Igloria, Mary Grace Bertulfo, Cynthia Buiza, Everett Cruz, Karen Llagas, Zosimo Kibilan, Aileen Cassinetto, David Maduli, Eileen Tabios, and Angela Narciso Torres. Thank you again so much. And I just wanted to remind everyone to please pick up a copy of Dear Human if you don't already have it. Again, there are 70 plus contributors to the anthology and many Filipinx poets, as you see here, included in the book. So I just wanted, we don't have much time left, but I did want to just ask a two-part question to any of the panelists who would like to respond. The first part of the question is what you think, I guess, the role or the responsibility you feel as a poet of color, a person of color, a Filipinx poet in writing poems on climate change and poems that address the urgent situation that we're all faced with. And then secondly, if you'd like to talk about what inspired you to write the piece, either that's in the book or a piece that you read today. So would anyone like to talk about both or either of those areas?
I guess I can start. Part of the inspiration for, I think, this project was seeded by some of my earlier involvements with similar undertakings, which had climate and ecopoetics and eco-justice at its heart. And I'm referring to the work done by the Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities in the Philippines and also Agam Agenda, Renato Constantino, who is one of the editors of many of the things that the projects that have come out there. They also came out with a book called Harvest Moon, which paired visual artists and poets and writers together to produce a beautiful, lyrical, powerful work that really looked at the lived experiences of people in terms of what they face, what we face today, in terms of the climate extremities that we face and their effect on our lives. So when I was still poet laureate of Virginia, I was thinking about how do I engage other poets who are like me, who have experience of these things firsthand, not only where we live, but we also have, like for instance, I come from Baguio originally, and I have memories of like what we used to do during typhoon weather. There was always a neighborhood that would flood every time, every year. And just the idea that the sense of precarity is even more heightened for other communities than the ones that are in, let's say, more developed countries. So one conversation led to another, and I'm very happy that it bore fruit in terms of Dear Human at the Edge of Time. As for what is the second part of your question? What
What was the inspiration behind a piece you read today
Oh,
or
okay.
a piece in the book?
Well, yeah, I guess the inspiration is taken from, again, as we encourage poets to do, to think about their lived experience. One of the things we did not want to encourage really was the use of any kind of scientific jargon, because we believe that it is the telling of our stories from the ground of our lived experience that really matter most to people. There is the science we can turn to affirm what we see, but the stories are where our hearts and our hopes and our anxieties lie. And I think it's very important for us to keep telling these stories in any way we can, in whatever art form we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Before someone else replies, I just want to share Maya's comment. I am drunk right now. I just ordered 2 copies of the book and will share a copy with a friend in Santa Rosa. So thank you, Maya. Okay, anyone else want to talk about address either of the questions about what inspired you, behind the inspiration behind a piece you read today, and also kind of what you think is the role of writers of color and actually being a Filipinx writer, the responsibility of writing about this urgent topic.
Beverly, I just want to quickly say that though our audience is mostly US based, because it features the stories of so many Filipino poets, between the lines are what we Filipinos remember and continue to survive. In the Philippines, every day is a struggle for survival and compounded by the climate crisis. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how, after centuries of colonization, the Philippines is one of the most vulnerable to sea level rise. Imagine back in the Spanish era, to build one galleon ship, they had to cut down 2,000 trees. And the logging and the taking of lands from indigenous peoples in the southern Philippines, that would have over time had impacts. I mean, I remember in the 90s, every rainy season, it didn't matter if we had typhoons, we had to navigate waist deep floods. So and now I think since Duterte's time, for the last 10 years, the Philippines has been named as the most dangerous in Asia for environmental activists. So these are things that, you know, though we are now US based, we cannot just put them down. We carry them with us. We bring them to the table, or whatever room we enter, or being Filipino. And you know, storytelling, which is an act of remembrance and resistance.
Thank you, Eileen. Beautifully said. Does anyone else want to talk about the inspiration behind their piece in the book? Everett?
Yeah, sorry about that. So as a teacher, as a poet, as a writer, I often feel like I don't have a lot of real power in the world. But what I have is anger, and I'm very angry with everything that's going on in the world. And it's, I think you can see it in the piece that I wrote for this. And so what do you do with anger? As a writer, you write with it. And so I just put all of that into my poetry, and kind of leave the audience, the reader, or I do a lot of spoken word as well, my listening audience, to kind of deal with my anger and to deal with this feeling. Because what else should I do with it? I can't, you know, live with it every day and have it ruin my day-to-day life. And as far as what I have as a POC, as a person of color, as a Filipino American, I have the rhythms and cadences of the language I grew up around, but don't always fully understand what's being said to me. And so, like with the piece that I wrote, I use reduplication for effect. You know, like a you know, we use a lot of repetition in poetry anyway, but I try to use it in a way that was more interesting. That's how this piece started for me, at least. And so that's just kind of my feelings and how my identity enters my work. So that's what I have.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something.
Yeah.
To the question of what's our responsibility as people of color and poets of color, I'd like to, because this is such a Filipinx grounded space, I really feel, first of all, I'm happy that we have a collective voice. Thank you to Luisa, Eileen, and Dr. Jeremy for bringing us together as a collective voice. I'm very drawn to art forms where there's multiple points of view, because I don't think one point of view ever has the answer. And, you know, to that end, we as Filipinos have values like kapwa. As someone who's a second generation Philam, I am trying to understand that. Kapwa, the sense that the other is part of ourselves, that there is a we-ness, an us-ness, that what is done to the other is really done to ourselves. And that, I think, was echoed maybe by David Maduli earlier. So can we extend that to more than human beings? In our ancient pre-colonial, I find hope in the resilience of indigenous folks in the Philippines and here on Turtle Island. That's where I am finding hope, because they vetted the answers. And so I really feel like it's not that it's not dire, but we should not give up. And so one of the reasons I wrote the poem that I wrote, Feast, was to show that in a tough time, families, intergenerational families, are still going to struggle to celebrate and be with one another and to survive. And the mosquitoes are also struggling. They are our sisters and brothers. So there again is the multiple points of view. So I just wanted to bring that facet to our conversation. And thank you all for all of your voices.
And I think that's what made your poem so powerful, is that it was about a family gathering. And you wove in sort of the climate change piece, but at the heart of it really was the love and the family and the togetherness. So it's really beautiful. I guess I have a question for just the last few more minutes here. I have a question for Luisa and Eileen. When you were putting the anthology together, was it a combination of poets who had already written pieces based on climate change, or were all of these new works commissioned for the book, for the anthology?
Well, we have both types of contributions to the anthology. And whenever there was, I think the newer works outnumber the ones that have been previously published in some form elsewhere. So we're very proud of the fact that people really responded to it in a very direct way, with their own desire, rising to the surface and writing to the subject in a way that I think communicated to us that this was the time for a project like this, that people really need something like this at this particular time. Maybe Eileen would like to add to that response.
I don't think I have anything else to add. I did reach out to Eileen Tabios to send a poem. So I wasn't sure how many we would get really. So it was a sort of it was a validation that we got so many submissions. And so really this is a convergence of poets and scientists who just set out to tell a story, and hopefully we we didn't anticipate everything that happened after that to be included in. For instance, we were told that when they had White House climate discussions, apparently somebody said after they were trying to report about the NCA 5, and so somebody said, yes, we know about that. Now we want to hear about the poetry. So that was very validating. And certainly we don't take it for granted that being able to enter those spaces, especially me personally, having come from the background that I came from.
So are there themes or some learnings from the submissions received by the Filipinx poets? Anything surprising, or can you talk about sort of, as you received submissions from Filipinx poems, if themes started to emerge?
Is this a question for Eileen and myself again, or is
Yes,
it?
sorry,
Oh,
yes.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, besides the themes of anxiety and what we do, the sort of, grief, the elegiac emotions in the face of the edge that we talk about, Dear Human at the Edge of Time. I think Claire Wamenholm in her foreword talks about it in a very beautiful way. She talks about the edge as having different meanings, and the edge being not necessarily a sort of precipice from which to fall into oblivion and the abyss and doom, but as a place where things can still turn and be converge with other states that we don't quite know yet. So that is definitely something that we are seeing in a lot of the poems in the anthology. So beside the grieving and the elegy and the mourning, there's also the hopes and also this desire to bond with others and form, or maybe at least interrogate different kinds of agency. What do we do now? And I know that there are books coming out too, like Rebecca Solnit has just released a small book called Not Too Late, where whole chapter is dedicated to, okay, we hear all about the climate disasters, but there's a whole chapter in that little book devoted to, well, what are the wins? We don't talk about them as much as the things that really scare us. And I'm a grandmother now. I have a 6-year-old grandson, and when I think about him in the future, I cannot just wallow, in this sort of grief and elegy. I have to think about, how do we preserve the love that we have for the world and pass it on to the next generation, right?
Right, right. So the realities that we're facing, but also the hope and the possibility and the hope for change. And I was about to ask you about the reach for the book. It just came out a few months ago, so I'm just curious, what has the reach been like? Obviously, the book has won an award. Is it having so far? It's early. It just came out, but is it sort of getting the attention and the promotion? And are people sort of um, um, really catching on to the power of an anthology with this theme on climate change?
I'll let Eileen take that.
I think what's really surprising was the interest from non-literary people, from scientists. So that I think that was a surprise for me. But Beverly, I want to ask everyone here, including yourself, what gives you hope?
What gives us hope? I'll actually put that out to the readers first. Does anyone want to respond to that?
I'll respond. I'll respond as somebody who I remember a senior year in college, so this is over 2 decades ago, and I was in New York. There was a huge march across the country, culminating into Washington, and it was the first that I could recall anyway, huge national march of the people concerned about the environment and wanting politicians to do something. So they were marching and gathered up en masse. And I was an ignorant college student on this topic. And one of the march's organizers looked at me with sort of the liberal pity on his face at my ignorance and said, you don't understand. This is going to be a huge, huge movement, this movement to protect the environment. This was over 2 decades ago. And then we come to today, where I just said earlier, 2023 was the hottest year on the planet, and it's further deteriorating. So I actually think that, if anything, I would have gotten, and I have gotten, quite cynical about the individuals and our praising of ourselves for being activists in this realm when we've theoretically failed, if you take a look at the macro point. But then I come around to, and I'll pick up on something Luisa said earlier about how the anthology is comprised of individual stories. I think the source of hope, which is something to bear in mind when you come up against topics that are so immense, like climate change and the environment and justice and ethics. These are such immense topics that the only source of hope gets down to the individual action, and which means individual story. So that if you at home are, I'm making this up, recycling your diet cans of soda, that actually is a moment of hope. That act of recycling that plastic container is an act of hope. The individual, very micro decisions and actions are the sources of hope, which would feed out from a grassroots level to have a larger impact. So when we say the immense, I'm glad you insisted, Luisa and Eileen, that scientific jargon not be so prevalent in this anthology, because that's on the macro level. On the individual, on the story level, we're talking about individual actions, and those are the sources of hope. I mean, an iceberg can melt, but yes, you'd better be recycling that emptied can of soda,
Anyone else on hope? I mean, personally, I have to agree with Eileen. I think art gives me hope, and story gives me hope. It's our way. It's one of our ways that we can fight, is to share our experiences and really touch people in an emotional way and through lived experience. And so we know scientific data is just not enough. Nobody's listening, right? We need more. We need to come at it in all directions. And so that's the beauty of this book. That's the beauty of all the pieces you read today, and the power of art. And I think art, we always have art, I think. And that's very hopeful to me.
I have a small addition to what you just said, Beverly, about the power of art as a source of hope. I was just thinking a lot of the fallouts from environmental disaster can be traced to something we can basically think of as extractive economies, the extractive approach to just, using up all the resources without heed of anything. And that comes from a point of view of mastery, a mastery over nature, over the land, over people, and so forth. I was thinking, just change one letter from mastery to mystery. And I think shifting your point of view, even just in a small way, that micro way, can also hopefully help restore our wonder again at life, at the universe, at the things that you can't really put a price tag on, but that are the most important for us and for the whole planet, all beings included.
I wanted to share something as I listen to everybody. Thank you again, everyone. Because in these days, climate and politics and everything combined, if you get lost in that, as for example, one of our teacher poets indicated, that anger it'll see through, it'll destroy you. So that's why I think it's very important, the significance and importance of an artist sharing their vision, sharing their inspiration, sharing their actually frustration, but also sharing their hope. That is important, because if we are just caught up in just the pure anger and desperation, we get nowhere, right? We destroy ourselves. That's why what I really appreciated from everybody sharing is like, it's like, the hope that it's not lost as long as it's inside us. And another thing also that was very powerful for me was listening to Mary Grace, the fact that despite the horror surrounding us, that the sense of family, to still create life within hell, that might surround us, is so important, because in the end, to me, that is the most important thing, family, and our loved ones, and that we still, no matter what, somehow we need to find a way to thrive in what we can, and still creating life and inspiration among the people that we love. And in that sense, when we share that, as all of you have shared, you actually create hope for everybody else who might have felt like, oh, this is it, it's gone. No, it's never gone until you really left this world.
Thank you, Edwin. So with that, beautiful discussion, really important event, really crucial work, essential work. Thank you all so much. PAWA and the Filipino American Center of the San Francisco Library are so honored that you shared this time with us. Edwin, do you want to close out?
Yes, again, thank you again for all the poets and the artists who've joined us, and all our attendees who have stuck with us through the end. And we would love to hear more comments. We can continue this at some point, even email us, and then when we publish the recording, we can add that as well as your comments. I just want to let you know that this is Book Festival year again. It's hard to believe So this year will be the 7th Filipino American International Book Festival, and it's exciting and daunting at the same time because there's so many authors and writers. No, but we just wanted to let you know, remind you that the second weekend of October 2024, the 7th Filipino American International Book Festival at the San Francisco Main Library. Abe, would you like to join? Say anything else?
Well, just mark the dates. It's going to be October 11th through the 13th. So yeah, let's all look forward to joining again in that period of time.
Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year, everyone. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.